Hey writers, you're listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business. We're your hosts. I'm Laura Granger, author engagement manager at Kobo Writing Life.
And I'm Rachel, promotion specialist at Kobo Writing Life. On today's episode of the podcast, we spoke to romance author Bethany Lopez. Bethany is a USA Today best-selling author of more than 30 books and has been published since 2011. She's a lover of all things romance, which she incorporates into her books, no matter what genre.
We talked to Bethany about writing in different genres, writing under a pen name for her paranormal romance series, and the role her newsletter plays in her marketing strategy. We had a great time chatting with Bethany, and we hope you enjoy. We are joined today by author Bethany Lopez. Bethany, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Just to kind of kick things off, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Oh, okay. I have been writing since... Well, I've always been writing, but I have been writing with intent and actually publishing. I started writing again in 2010 and then self-published my first book in 2011. So I've been going since then. A lot of learning as I go. It's been interesting, and things are ever changing. So you just kind of go with that. But prior to that, I was U.S. Air Force. I started writing while I was still in active duty Air Force, and then I retired in 2014. And so, then I wrote full-time for a while, moved around a bit, still with the military, and then we settled here in Georgia a few years ago. Brings us where we are today.
And how did you end up going indie? Was that always the plan, or?
Well, I started off knowing nothing about really the indie market whatsoever. So I didn't really even know that that was an option at the time. I just started kind of writing for myself and for my daughters. And so I started in YA. And I did look into how to find an agent and all that stuff initially. And then I actually found out when I was home in Michigan for my grandmother's funeral, my aunt told me that one of my uncles had published his own book through Amazon. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, he just did that by himself? So this was in, 2010, I think. And so, I had no idea it even existed. So I started doing research and I picked up a book, and I think it was like the 10 things that you need to do if you're interested in indie publishing. And I read that book and I did each of the 10 things. Like, it was at the time, join Twitter and use this hashtag and find this and do this. And, eventually I started there, and it just kind of built. You start meeting people, and then you're like, wow, there's this whole world out there that I had no idea even existed, this whole community. And I just jumped in.
One thing I really like that you mentioned is that you've always been a writer, but you started writing with intent. And I'm just wondering how that shift happened for you.
Well, like I said, I was active duty military, so I did have a full-time job. I want to say at the time, we had 4 kids living at home. 2 of them were teen and preteen girls. And I thought, kind of when I was younger, I didn't want to listen to what my parents told me to do. They didn't know anything anyway. But when I read Sweet Valley High, the lessons in there really stuck with me and meant something to me, Todd was in a motorcycle accident. So there's no way I was ever going to get on a motorcycle. And, another girl, went to a party and tried cocaine for the first time, and she died. At the party, she just died. And now, it was all very dramatic and everything, but it seriously stuck in my head. And I was like, I'm never doing that. So I was like, well, maybe if I write something that they can relate to and just try to impart some wisdom in there, they'll listen to me in that way, like a roundabout sort of parenting lesson. So that's how it started. And then I was like, okay, well, this is cool. Now, why don't I write something that I want to read?
So Sweet Valley High was really the impetus for your entire writing career.
Right.
That's incredible. Now, was it the books that you wrote for your kids that kind of got the publishing idea going, or was that when you switched to writing for yourself?
That's what got the publishing idea going. I was like, okay, well, maybe if they enjoy it, maybe other kids would enjoy it too. So that's kind of what started it. And then, I switched over into new adult right as that was starting. And so that kind of like switched me over into romance a little bit more. And then I thought, well, Nora Roberts was my all-time favorite writer. So kind of moved in then to like more adult writing. So yeah, I just kind of transitioned and I still bounce back and forth. Unfortunately, I'm still working on that for that first YA series. I'm still going to write those last two books, I swear. And people are like, yeah, right. But yeah, I just gravitated towards other things.
So I have to know, were your kids receptive to the books that you wrote for them? Or were they very much in the like, you're my mom, I'm not going to listen to you?
Of course, still, yeah, of course. But they were interested because I kind of loosely based some of the characters off of them in like a more exaggerated way, and so they enjoyed it at that time. And then even as they got older, like I remember my son, he was younger, but then when he was in middle school, like he would talk to them about it. He would get his people to read it and like had me put it in their school library and everything like that. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, they were pretty receptive to it. I don't know if it made them make better choices in life, but we tried.
Hey, that's a great parenting hack for writers out there, though.
Right.
I love that he was advocating for your books to be in the library. That's a good son.
Yes. He would get the girls on the bus to go to the library and check them out,
That's very cute. So you kind of started this whole journey, like you said, in around 2010. So I can only imagine how much has changed in the industry since then. What is kind of like the biggest shift that you've seen?
I mean, now, which I love, is kind of the resurgence of paperbacks. We started losing all the brick and mortar stores there. They were all closing down. And then suddenly it's just this huge new thing again. People are loving it. And so, you'll see people, whether they're using an e-reader or a paperback or both, or they read it on their e-reader and they want to own the hard copy or the paperback copy. So that's been huge. Of course, there was, the new adult surge, and then you have all the different subgenres that will come and go. But yeah, the biggest thing I think I felt has seen were, you went from people not wanting to use an e-reader, like, no, it's never going to happen. I hate it. And then they only wanted it because they could have thousands of books on there. And, and it didn't take up any shelf space. So now they want to show off their favorites, so they're back to buying their favorites and showcasing that. And, color coordinating. And I still can't, I have to alphabetize. Like my daughter, my 14-year-old now, my youngest, she has her shelves all, color coordinated. And I'm like, but how do you know where everything is?
I am also anti-color coding on or color coordinating on bookshelves, because what if you have to split up a series?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
I do it by genre. So at least I know where I can find everything.
Genre and then alphabetized over here by author. Yeah. That's how I organize my library for everybody who's interested. So on your bio, you mentioned that you like to incorporate romance into everything you write. And like that includes a cookbook that you have as well. Yeah. You mentioned that Nora Roberts was your favorite, but have you always been an avid romance reader?
Yes, I do love to read romance. I like women's fiction as well. And I also like a good mystery and thriller. So I'll go through waves or like Regency romance. I'll get on a kick for that for a while. So always I do love, romance. You figure relationships and love, and that's part of all of our daily, whether it's reading, writing, music, shows, movies, that's the commonality that brings us all together, I think. And so you have to have a little bit of that in there to and an AGA is a must.
Do you find that you read in whatever genre you're writing in, or do you avoid similarities?
Yeah, I usually try to avoid it, or I can't usually do the same thing at the same time. Like if I'm writing paranormal, then I'm, reading contemporary or rom-coms and vice versa. Or, a Regency is always good if I'm in a fix.
So you write under a bunch of different romance subgenres. All of them is Bethany Lopez, but your paranormal series, you write as DJ Bryce. Can you tell us about why you switched pen names for that one?
Yeah, it was kind of like, like I said, when I came in, I knew nothing about it. So I just used my name. And then, I just wrote what I wanted to write whenever. And then now, of course, the big thing is like, stay in your lane, make sure you have a pen name for each certain thing so your readers don't get confused. And I'm like, well, I totally messed that up. So when I decided to do paranormal, I figured that was a big enough jump away from everything else that I had done that I could try out a pen name and just kind of see how it went. And so, yeah, it was just kind of trying a different marketing strategy, really, and separating those two. And then eventually, after a few years, I just said, hey, they're both me, whatever. But in the beginning, I didn't say that. I was just trying something new.
And do your paranormal readers differ a lot from your regular romance readers?
A little. I mean, some like paranormal readers are diehard only paranormal read. Like they're not going to read they're not going to jump to other genres and read something else. They only want that level of, I guess, fantasy. Some of my core readers will read all of it just because I think my voice is my voice. So no matter what I'm writing, they all kind of have the same feel to them. Maybe the paranormal are just a little bit more heated than the other ones.
And was it hard to kind of shift to that world building that you see in paranormal?
A little bit. When I first started out in YA, before I did the new adult, I did one YA fantasy because there was this writing convention that I wanted to go to. And I had never been to anything like that before. It was before there were conventions everywhere. So it was very and a lot of people I knew had met on Twitter were going there because they all did YA fantasy and paranormal. And I was YA contemporary. And so I watched, online as they were at this first conference. And I was like, oh my God, that looks so much fun. But it was only for kind of fantasy. So I wrote this book specifically so I could go the next year to that conference. And it was the Utopia conference. And so that's why I wrote it. So that was hard for me. That one I did. She was a fairy godmother in training. And so just it started off in the fairy world of hers. So that was definitely different than what I had done before. So maybe that helped a little bit when I went for the paranormal, but really the world is pretty contemporary. They're just shifters mostly in the world.
Does your writing process differ when going between genres and subgenres? Like Laura mentioned, and like you mentioned, there is some world building element, even if it is there has to be the rules for the shifters. Right. So do you have to do more prep work when tackling something that isn't strictly in our real world?
Yeah, just notebooks and notebooks full of things. I pretty much handwrite all that stuff down. Getting better and have started with Google Docs. My kids will be like, wow, you're still doing that because you just opened a Google Docs already. I'm like, but why? What does that do? So I've started doing that. And it is actually quite helpful. I have I forget what the other one was called, Microsoft OneNote. And so I had stuff on there for one of my series. It's all still there.
I don't know. I can appreciate the organizational capabilities of electronic notes, but there's something just so tangible about handwriting.
Of course, then you're flipping back through all trying, where did I put that?
And it's mentioned scribbled in the margin of 3 pages back.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned that a lot of paranormal, not a lot, but some paranormal readers won't go into contemporary. So I'm curious, do you segment your newsletter or newsletters based on the readership and what genres they're interested in?
Well, I do have a separate newsletter for DJ Bryce, but I will still include all of that in my regular newsletter too, just for my readers who like everything. And that seems to go pretty well. Most of my readers are wide. So if I share other people's stuff and it's not wide, they'll be like, I only read wide. I'm like, I know this is just for everybody. I'm just letting you know. Yep, just trying to share somebody else's stuff. But yeah, they'll let me know. But the paranormal stuff, mostly when I set up at a conference, I'll separate the table. So it'll be the paranormal on one side and the other stuff, and then maybe the kids YA stuff in the middle. And they'll definitely be like, oh, this, and then they'll look, no, I don't read that. And they'll just look at the paranormal stuff.
Readers are so specific about what they like now, very vocal, so specific. It's kind of funny to see how that's changed.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that we have found talking to authors on this podcast is that newsletters tend to be kind of an evergreen marketing strategy as everything else changes. How do you utilize your newsletter in your marketing?
I try to stay consistent at least once a month, always. I keep it on the first Monday of the month. If I have extra things going on, I'll do, an extra newsletter. Now, I've been doing a lot of the swaps with other authors where you're, giving one of their books for free to your readers. And my readers really respond to that. Like, they like trying new things. They love getting the stuff. But also they love just having like personal notes in there about what I'm doing. And that's usually where I get the most responses back, the most replies back to my newsletter is when I've talked about something just going on in my life or, a trip or just anything, oh, hey, I'm struggling this month with this. And then I'll get a lot of responses back for that. So sometimes you think like nobody's really out there like reading this or listening or knows what's going on. Or you think maybe they're all the same, like the people in my reader group or the people on Facebook or the people, in the newsletter. But I guess people just find their own things that they like and they're not necessarily in the same things because I have a lot more newsletter subscribers than I do like people in my Facebook group or whatever. So I think sometimes because you don't always hear back, you don't realize, that they're actually invested in and looking into this. I did do a couple of years back, I did the book, like where you did one chapter a month until you were finished with the book. And then I added more to the book itself and then released it. But they really loved that, the, kind of reading as it went. And then they try to be like, oh, well, what if this happens next time? I know it's not, it's not a choose your own adventure book.
Would you say that your newsletter is your primary source for engaging with your readers, or do you utilize social media a lot as well?
I do use all social media. Like I said, I still have the Twitter. There's really no engagement on there whatsoever, but it's still there. And, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok a little. I haven't posted in a while, but still get interaction on things. But I feel like the newsletter is probably the best as far as downloads whenever I have something free or a sale or anything like that. They're definitely my biggest audience.
How did you find like breaking into making TikToks? Because I find it very intimidating as an avid scroller on the app.
Right. Sometimes, yeah. And then I'll look at other authors and they're like, oh, beautifully, coiffed. And, I was like, good golly, I just had to be like, nobody really cares what I look like. Like they're not going on there to, get makeup advice from my TikTok, right? So just jump in. I do like to do some of the like trivia things or the answer questions things. And I've done a couple where I'm actually, talking about the book or it's so hard to figure out like what's the best way. The flip page. There's so much that you could do. You just have no idea what's going to work. So I've just tried to be organic with it, I guess, and whatever goes, we'll see what happens.
That is kind of one thing we've heard and kind of a running theme is that when it comes to TikTok, like authenticity is something that really works for people rather than, I don't know, pretending like the Instagram of it all, the pretending to be something fancy. I don't know. That's just my observation as somebody who spends far too much time on this app.
Yeah.
If you could give one piece of marketing advice to a new indie author, what would you say?
Well, I know people always talk about it's difficult, BookBub is still like a wonderful resource and tool. And yes, it's hard to get that first yes. I want to say I probably requested every month for 2 years, just different books, just trying everything until I finally got that first yes. And then I was like, oh my God. And it was so totally worth the wait. For stuff like that where it's harder, but it does definitely have a return on your investment, even return on your time. Just keep trying. Every time you get to know, they're like, oh, well, whatever. There goes again. But it's not that they don't like you. It's not that they don't want your book. I think, just eventually there will come that perfect time for whichever book you're submitting and it'll fit. For me, especially for a series, the free has always worked better than the 99 cents or $2.99 or anything like that, as long as you have a place for them to go, so it has to be like, it doesn't even have to be the first book in the series. It can be any book in the series and you'll still have them getting the read through and going back to get the other books in the series. For me, I've done, if it's not a series or if it's a box set and you really just want to get eyes on it, I think the free, you'll see the most return as far as getting those read throughs and then getting sales. But for the 99-cent box sets or just individual titles, standalones, that's where you won't necessarily see the revenue, but you're definitely going to see the jump in your rankings all across the board. And of course, I'm still talking wide books here. So all across the board, that's where if what you're interested in is kind of getting more eyes on it and getting into the rankings, then that's the way to go for that.
Along those lines, like you've mentioned, you've been publishing for a while. You have over 30 books to your name. So would you say that box sets and free first in series, great ways to keep your backlist going as well?
Yes. I used to do all of my series, first in series free. Now I'm starting to, that was, I think, bigger a few years ago. Now I still do some, but I kind of try to rotate it every few years, just so it's not always the same thing. And you can, catch new readers once you make a new book free or new to them. But box sets are always great. People love that, especially, releasing it a bit reduced so that they feel like they're getting a steal. And again, you think, oh, well, they've already read the whole series. Like they don't want a box set, but that's just not true. It's almost like a new source of readers are opened up to you through box sets. Some people just like the box set. I don't know.
Yeah, we find box sets are incredibly popular on Kobo. And I think you're right. I think it's because you're reaching a new reader, like the binge reader who doesn't want to wait and just wants to see the entire thing on their device all at once.
And they want to feel, especially if it's $1 or $2 less than buying 3 individual titles, they like that deal. They feel like they're getting something,
So one thing that you mentioned before is that you've done some cross promoting with other authors, whether it's featuring somebody else's book in like a newsletter swap, or I saw on your Facebook page, was it Romance Bookworms, did like a big giveaway together. So I'm wondering what that experience has been like and how do you find people to work with in this capacity?
Since I started out back in the Twitter days, I feel like I've always done that. So, and over the years, I've just met so many different authors that way. And then you kind of just forge these kind of partnerships almost, where that you can send them an email and be like, hey, I have a release coming up. Would you mind sharing it? And they know that they can do the same with you. And then there's also, groups where multi-author reader groups where we'll get together and be like, hey, these are all small town romance. And that's all we're going to talk about in this reader group is small town romance. And then we share each other's books. And then now they've started like building newsletters within those groups just for genre specific readers. Yeah. So it's just kind of, you start out small and then just expand from there. But I'm always willing, to help people out and, share their stuff. It doesn't have to be identical to mine or the same genre or anything like that, because readers read everything. I read everything, I don't just stick it to one. I know there are the ones that just stick in one thing. They love what they love. But usually everyone will try anything, Now,
for a new author starting out, I can imagine approaching an author to be featured in their newsletter might be daunting. Do you have any advice for authors who are just starting out and want to build their own newsletter list?
Well, there are different newsletter builders that you can do, but oftentimes those are just people that are looking for whatever free thing is being given away in order to join, and so they may knock off after the giveaway is over or whatever it is. The swaps with authors where you're sharing their freebie, and it's usually through BookFunnel, where then in order to download it, they have to sign up for that author's newsletter. So that kind of helps. It's a little bit more organic than just doing like some kind of free newsletter builder. So those are good. And just, of course, just making sure that you have links to that, landing page of your newsletter on all of your social media and your website and everywhere possible, so that anybody who is interested can always find it.
And when it comes to newsletter swaps, do you think are most authors open to just a random DM from a fellow author asking, how do you think?
Some people don't do the swaps. Like their readers are like, no, my reader's just here for my books. And, that's not what this newsletter is for. So not everybody will do them. So definitely kind of like with anything, like do your research and, get to know a little a little bit about them. And, we find a lot of each other in, whether it's writing groups online or at conferences, definitely like going to the Romance Author Mastermind, ton of different groups started from there, and they would go based on genre and have their own different newsletter swaps and stuff. So definitely always in person helps, if you can do it, just to have that face-to-face interaction and actually meet somebody. And then they're much more likely to be like, yeah, we met around. Sure. I would love to, help you out. And the DM thing, I mean, some people don't even check that stuff, so you can just be sitting there in a wasteland forever.
You've talked a lot about the author community and just in general. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have your own author group. Is that correct? Bethany's Bombshells.
That's my reader group.
Yeah,
that's
I misread.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's my reader group. That's where I post, just the stuff first for my readers in there and in my newsletter. And then I do have like a sprinting group for authors that I started a few years ago. And we'll, go in kind of fits and starts where people will be in there writing, and then it kind of dies off for a while. And then we're like, hey, remember, we're still here. But I don't have my own like author tips group. I am a part of a few of those with other authors, but I don't have that myself.
Do you find being a part of author groups really helpful, not just marketing wise, but as far as craft goes as well?
Yes. And just asking any kind of questions in there. People are really open to sharing, I find, in most of these groups. And, you can talk about, hey, how do you get a PA? What does a PA do? Or what do you think about this cover that I have? So it's just like you can help each other in other ways other than just, newsletters and stuff. Sometimes it's just about, hey, I'm having a hard writing day, and can somebody give me a word of encouragement or something like that?
And you mentioned Romance Author Mastermind as a conference you like going to. Are there any other ones you found kind of helpful on your self-publishing journey?
Yes. As far as like strictly for writers, I'm trying to think, the Southern California Writers Conference was the first one that I went to. I think I was where we were stationed in LA at the time, maybe. And so that was intimidating. That was the first thing. I think I had 2 YA books out at the time in the series. And so I think I probably went in like 2012, in February 2012, because they do 2 a year, but I've only been to the one that's in San Diego. And so that one was pretty cool, intimidating. Like I sat in the parking lot, like, oh my God, I can't go in here. Like they're all going to think I'm a hack. I can't do this. But it was really cool to have, different breakout rooms and different, lessons on craft. And I learned so much. And then a few years later, I went back as a keynote speaker, and I thought I was really going to die after that. I was like in panic. And then I went back later and did a few different courses during the conference. So that one is near and dear to my heart. I really enjoy that one. Romance Author Mastermind I've been to a few times. I've only done, trying to think, Inkers Con. I've only done the online mini con for that, but I know that that's pretty helpful to writers. So I've done a few of like the online courses that you'll see pop up here and there, but in person, I've only done the 2.
And one thing we always love about talking about the indie author community is such a large percentage of indie authors are just so open and willing to talk about just the business of being in indie publishing and also just the craft of writing. And it makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. It's just how lovely everybody is. Sorry, almost everybody. I don't want to like make everybody sound wonderful, but mostly. Now I'm going to take like a hard left turn here.
Okay.
On your website, you have like some really fun elements like merchandise, but I want to ask about your playlists.
Okay.
Because I just want to know how you come up with them. Do you write to music? Is this something you come up with as part of your like writing process, or are these inspired by the finished product of your book?
No, I can't write to music. I need like quiet space. The playlists, sometimes it'll be just what I heard on the radio that inspired me to write the book in the first place. And sometimes it's just like something the character would listen to, or just something that really fits the mood that I'm in. Maybe I'll listen to that when I'm not writing, just to get myself in the mood to write it. So yeah, and I think, I don't know if I've linked the Spotify playlist. I'll have them on there as well. And yeah, so I can just listen to that playlist and get myself in the mood to write it. Especially like with the Jilted Wives Club, I'll add, like the playlist started out from one book and then I add to it with each book. And so it kind of can help get me back in that mindset.
I love that so much. It's like a sneak peek into what's happening in your brain during the writing process. Is there something that you're listening to on repeat now to kind of get in the zone for a book?
My daughter has me listening to Taylor Swift on repeat. We're going to be going to the concert here in April. So I am in study mode. Like I have, lessons to learn before it happens.
We don't have enough time on this podcast for me to get into how jealous I am that you got Taylor Swift tickets.
They were very hard to get, let me tell you. Yes, but I'm in kind of a country mode right now. So I've been listening to a lot of country music. The next book that I'm writing, they both work on neighboring ranches and farms type things. So kind of going through that phase right now.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your newest release? I think this is kind of like a women's sleuth series.
Yes. Crazy for Cupcakes is the last release that I had. And that one, oh my gosh, when did that series even start? It's been going for a number of years now. And that one has probably been a couple years in between the 4th and 5th books. But yeah, it's probably my most fun series. My mom calls it like a R-rated Stephanie Plum type. So she starts out as a photographer for a PI. And so she's just going on getting the pictures, getting the dirt on everybody. And that starts because she found her husband cheating on her and she took a picture and posted it all over town. And so when the PI saw that, he was like, oh, you should come work for me. I have the perfect job for you. So, when it starts, she's newly been divorced maybe like a year, has this new job, has twins at home, and just really contempt for her ex. And then she meets this mysterious motorcycle man who always seems to drive up right as she's like running from trouble. So it's just a really fun kind of, I can just say whatever I want, do whatever I want kind of series. There's sex, violence, lots of swearing. I've had a lot of, I can't ever read this again. That was terrible. There were so many F, I was like, there's literally an F-bomb in the blurb for the book. Like there's no hiding the fact of what this book is going to have. I put a little disclaimer at the bottom of each blurb for the book. So yeah, and she stress eats cupcakes. So that's where the cupcake cookbook came from, was cupcakes from that series.
Now, I don't want to make you choose a series as your favorite, because I feel like that's rude. But do you have a favorite genre that you like to play in?
That's so hard. I love that one because it is kind of different than everything else that I write. I also really love the Jilted Wives Club. I think they're, funny and fun too, but also kind of emotional at times. So I love them, and I love everybody.
I'm making you choose your favorite kid right now.
No, I know you can't. Three Sisters Catering, I really loved. I enjoyed writing about the sisters, and then that's been spun off into the Frat House Confessions series. That's like their brothers. I can't pick. It's impossible.
And on that note, is there a genre that you haven't written in that you'd like to try?
I've done kind of some of a little bit of suspense with, it's the Delilah Horton series, but it started off as the Cupcake series. So there's a little bit, suspense in there because she has, a different case in each book, and then some smaller cases that pop up. And then a couple of the books just in combined series have cops, and then those will have a little bit of romantic suspense in them. The Shifters, DJ Bryce has some suspense in there. So I don't know, maybe just a hardcore thriller, something like that. I don't know if I could do a cozy mystery, but maybe just a mystery or thriller.
I feel like your playlist for a thriller book would be excellent. Definitely some angry Taylor Swift songs you can put on there.
I was about to say you definitely need Picture to Burn in there for sure. Some old school Taylor breakup songs.
Reputation album.
Yes, for sure. So what can readers expect from you next?
Oh, So hard. I do owe books. I know that I owe the books. I'm sorry, people. I know I owe the books. I am a series jumper. I don't finish the whole series, which probably drives people insane. It would drive me insane. I'd be like, where's the next book in the series? But I'm like, I can't. I got to go wherever it takes me. So I owe a book. Well, I owe a book in the original YA series. That's about 12 years coming. But I owe another Frat House book, 2 of them actually. And Accidental Wife will be probably the next one that comes out. But I also had an idea for something new, which is always, like, oh, squirrel, After about book 5, I start going, okay, I need to find something new to, have fun with.
And I have one non-writing related question for you before we wrap up. And that is, what is your favorite type of cupcake?
Oh,
coming in with the hard-hitting questions.
I was going to say, Rachel, with all the hard questions today, pick your favorite cupcake, pick your favorite series.
I'm trying to think, like, out of the ones I made for the book, like for both cookbooks, I made everything in those cookbooks and gained so much weight when I was making those. Oh my goodness. But there's one that's like chocolate with like chocolate ganache inside. That one's really good. And then there's another one, and I'm not even a huge lemon person, but I did one like with lemon curd inside and then the meringue on top. And so you toast the meringue, so when it comes out, it's warm, and the lemon curd is like, oh my gosh, that one's really good.
I regret asking this question because I just want cupcakes.
You brought this on yourself, Rach.
I know I have no one but myself to blame. And Bethany, before we let you go, where can listeners find you online?
Well, now I'm like, what is my website? Oh, it's probably BethanyLopezAuthor.com. But yes, like I said, I am on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And I don't remember what else there is. Probably some things that I'm still on that aren't even around anymore because I've tried everything at least once.
We'll unearth a MySpace or something.
Right.
Well, Bethany, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a blast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you for listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast. If you're interested in picking up Bethany's books, we will include links in our show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're looking for more tips on growing your self-publishing business, you can find us at KoboWritingLife.com. Be sure to follow us on socials. We are at Kobo Writing Life on Facebook and Twitter, and at kobo.writing.life on Instagram.
This episode was hosted by Laura Granger and Rachel Wharton, with production by Terrence Abrahams. Editing is provided by Kelly Robotham. Our theme music is composed by Tearjerker. And big thanks to Bethany Lopez for being our guest today. If you're ready to start your publishing journey, sign up today at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing.